I could be using your Bibles. No, I could.
All right, so Genesis 27. And I'm going to be switching Bibles here when we get to Genesis 29:31, because I have this one, the 5 books of Moses, translated by Everett Fox.
Okay.
And probably doesn't show up on the screen, but this one is a very interesting translation. It tries to preserve the wordplay of the original Hebrew. And so when we get to the section with all the names, that's where it looks interesting. And if you look at it, he tries to preserve portions of poetry as well. So it's a really interesting way to read the Torah. And this 2-inch thick book is just the 5 books of Moses.
Wow. Interesting.
So there's lots and lots of notes as well.
Is it yours?
Yes.
Let me see the front of the book.
So I don't have the dust jacket on it. I don't
beautiful.
usually keep dust jackets.
Yeah, it's cumbersome, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it looks better without it.
Yeah. Kind of takes away from it.
Yeah. All right, so 27. Oh, the other reason I don't just read out of this one is it doesn't anglicize the names. So Isaac is actually, it's not on this page, but Yitzhak. And
Yitzhak?
Yes.
Yatzhak?
Oh, nothing like that.
No.
But let's see if I can turn back a few pages
Yitzhak.
here. It's actually Yitzhak.
That's what I spelled to you.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
and I didn't believe it was that odd.
Because I've heard of the name before, but I didn't know it was Moses.
No, that's Isaac.
Isaac, rather.
Abraham is rather plain. It's Avraham. And then you have Jacob here, who's Yaakov.
Yeah.
And so all the names sound completely different. Rachel is Rahel.
Yeah. See, Fiddlers on the Roof had a lot of those characters, as I heard them, call each other.
And, this
scenes.
is properly transliterating Hebrew names, but we don't properly transliterate Hebrew names because we get them from either Greek or Latin or German in some cases.
That's interesting.
So our modern Bibles take them from a completely different place. So it's difficult to go back and forth. All right, chapter 27. When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau, his elder son, and said to him, "My son?" He said to him, "Here I am." He said, "See now, I am old. I don't know the day of my death. Now, therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and get me venison. Make me savory food, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat and that my soul may bless you before I die." Rebekah heard when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son. Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. Rebekah spoke to Jacob, her son, saying, "Behold, I heard your father speak to Esau, your brother, saying, 'Bring me venison and make me savory food that I may eat and bless you before the Lord before my death.' Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command you. Go now to the flock and get me 2 good young goats from there. I will make them savory food for your father, such as he loves. You shall bring it to your father that he may eat, so that he may bless you before his death." Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. What if my father touches me? I will seem to him as a deceiver, and I would bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. His mother said to him, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go get them for me. She is stubborn, isn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He went and got them and brought them to his mother. His mother made savory food, such as his father loved. Rebekah took the good clothes of Esau, her elder son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. She put the skins of the young goats on his hands and the smooth of his neck. She gave the savory food and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. He gave them to his father and said, my father? He said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done what you asked me to do. Please arise, sit, and eat of my venison, that your soul may bless me. Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? He said, because the Lord your God gave me success. Isaac said to Jacob, please come near that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. Please come near that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. Jacob went near to Isaac, his father. He felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He didn't recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. He said, are you really my son Esau? He said, I am. He said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless you. I'm just thinking, when Jacob stole Esau's birthright, it was with a bowl of soup. Mm-hmm. And now that he is stealing his blessing, it is with a plate of venison. Mm-hmm. Well, with a plate of goat.
Wouldn't his father know the difference between the venison and the goat?
Well, as he said, he's very old. And towards the end of a person's life, the taste buds tend to go. Mm-hmm. It's...
I still have a problem with that. So I still have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
You can tell his senses are almost gone. Mm-hmm. You know, he can't see. He probably can't hear.
Is he 100 years old or older?
It doesn't say. Mm-hmm. At least not yet. And I've only read so far ahead today, so I haven't read as far as his death. I'll admit that. All right, he brought it near to him, and he ate. He brought him wine, and he drank. His father Isaac said to him, come near now and kiss me, my son. He came near and kissed him. He smelled the smell of his clothing and blessed him and said, behold, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. God give you the dew of the sky, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and new wine. Let peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers. Let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you. Blessed be everyone who blesses you. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had just gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, Esau, his brother, came in from his hunting. He also made savory food and brought it to his father. He said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that your soul may bless me. Isaac, his father, said to him, who are you? He said, I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. Isaac trembled violently and said, who then is he who has taken venison and brought it to me, and I have eaten of all before you came? and have blessed him. Yes, he will be blessed. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, my father." He said, "Your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing." He said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright. See, now he has taken away my blessing." He said, "Haven't you reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "Behold, I have made him your lord, and all his brothers I have given to him for servants. I have sustained him with grain and new wine. What then will I do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have just one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, my father." Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Isaac, his father, answered him, "Behold, your dwelling will be of the fatness of the earth and of the dew of the sky from above. You will live by your sword and you will serve your brother. It will happen when you break loose that you will shake his yoke from off your neck." Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. Esau said in his heart, "The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." The words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. She sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, "Behold, your brother Esau comforts himself about you by planning to kill you. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Laban, my brother in Haran. Stay with him a few days until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and get you from there. Why should I be bereaved of you both in one day?" Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth, such of these of the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me?"
There's hate already. I mean, it's really, to me, it's so unfair.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
So this is a
Terrible.
terrible story.
terrible.
And we see that Jacob steals
Mhm.
everything from Esau,
Yeah.
and his mother helps him
Mhm.
up to the end.
Yeah, it's a sad story.
Mm.
So what lesson do we get out of this? You know, this shows us that
Mm-hmm.
even in those times there was a lot of division. I mean,
People.
and she didn't like
Mhm.
the Hittite or half woman to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
and she got sent away. What does it tell me about Rebecca? Tells me a whole lot.
You know, I'm kind of wondering
Yeah.
if she would have said that if it weren't for Esau's anger. And so, just like with Abraham, we have this doubling down of iniquity. You know, one sin leads to another, and it snowballs. But I think the important thing to recognize is God doesn't expect us to be perfect. In fact, in this case, he doesn't even expect us to be good. He'll work with whatever we give him because he's called us. And I think we're going to see that in the next chapter. Because here we see Jacob gets what what's coming to him.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac called Jacob, blessed him, and commanded him, "You shall not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise and go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father. Take a wife from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may be a company of peoples, and give you the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may inherit the land where you travel, which God gave to Abraham." Isaac sent Jacob away. He went to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take him a wife from there, and that he blessed him. He gave him a command, saying, "You shall not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan." And that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother, and was gone to Padan Aram. Esau saw that the daughters of Canaan didn't please Isaac his father. So Esau went to Ishmael, and took, in addition to the wives that he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. Oh boy, that's way too many vowels together.
Yeah.
To be his wife. Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there all night, because the sun had set. He took one of the stones of the place and put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. He dreamt and saw a stairway set upon the earth, and its top reached to heaven. Behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Behold, the Lord stood above it and said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. I will give the land you lie on to you and to your offspring. Your offspring will be as the dust of the earth, and you will spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. In you and in your offspring, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you again into this land, for I will not leave you until I have done that which I have spoken to you." Jacob awakened out of his sleep, and he said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't know it." He was afraid and said, "How awesome this place is! This is none other than God's house, and this is the gate of heaven." Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on its top. He called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at first. Jacob vowed a vow, saying, "If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, and the Lord will be my God, then this stone which I have set up for a pillar will be God's house. Of all that you will give me, I will surely give a tenth to you." So this is the point in Jacob's life where God calls him. And this is a turning point for Jacob. Up until now, he has lived his own way. And he has lived for himself. So, but now he is called by God, and he knows that his life has a greater purpose. So Let's see if he lives up to it.
Yeah.
Chapter 29. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the children of the east. He looked and saw a well in the field and saw 3 flocks of sheep lying there by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks. The stone on the well's mouth was large. There all the flocks were gathered. They rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the sheep and put the stone back on the well's mouth in its place. Jacob said to them, "My relatives, where are you from?" They said, "We are from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" They said, "We know him." He said to them, Is it well with him?" They said, "It is well. See, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep." He said, "Behold, it is still the middle of the day, not time to gather the livestock together. Water the sheep and go and feed them." They said, "We can't until all the flocks are gathered together, and they roll the stone from the well's mouth. Then we will water the sheep." So they're trying to describe, it's a very large stone that clearly takes multiple. But this is going to be Jacob's second feat of strength. For she kept them. When Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son. She ran and told her father. When Laban heard the news of Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet Jacob and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things. Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." Jacob stayed with him for a month. Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what will your wages be?" Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and attractive. Jacob loved Rachel. He said, "I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man. Stay with me." Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. They seemed to him but a few days for the love he had for her. Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in to her." Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. In the evening he took Leah his daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went in to her. Laban gave Zilpah his servant to his daughter Leah for a servant. In the morning, behold, it was Leah. He said to Laban, "What is this you've done to me? Didn't I serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" Laban said, "It is not done in our place to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill the week of this one, and we will give you the other also for the service which you will serve with me 7 more years." So remember that Jacob was a deceiver, and now he's in another land.
Yeah.
And he's met another deceiver.
Right.
He deceived his brother twice.
Twice.
And now he's going to be deceived twice. Each time he serves Laban for 7 years, for a total of 14. And 7 is a number of completion, right? The world was created in 7 days. So in 7 years, he serves his penance for each of the times he deceived his brother.
Wow.
Hmm. So Jacob did so and fulfilled her week. He gave him Rachel, his daughter, as wife. Laban gave Bilhah, his servant, to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. He went in also to Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him 7 more years. The Lord saw that Leah was hated, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. That's what I've done.
Oh, when Leah was unloved,
Mm-hmm.
he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren.
Mm-hmm.
Leah conceived.
Yeah. So we have something of an explanation for why Leah is given children first, even though they're given as wives a week apart. But Jacob is still paying his penance, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he doesn't get what he wants. And it might be that if Rachel was having children, he wouldn't be a faithful husband to Leah at all. So, like I said before, there's something to be seen for polyamorous relationships here, where there are always things in the relationship that are not the same, that are unfair, where one is preferred over the other, and you have to find a way to make things work.
But also, what Jacob says
Mm-hmm.
to his son,
Mm-hmm.
that usually in their community
Mm-hmm.
or faith, they want the elder daughter to marry before the younger one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not unusual because it happens. It happened too in other cultures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of like reinforces that, to me.
Oh, yeah. All right, so verse 32. So Leah became pregnant and bore a son. She called him Reuben, which means, see, a son.
Mm-hmm.
For she said, indeed, the Lord has seen my being afflicted. Indeed, now my husband will love me. She became pregnant again and bore a son, and said, indeed, the Lord has heard that I am hated. So he has given me this one as well. And she called and she called his name Shimon, which means hearing. She became pregnant again and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will be joined to me, for I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore they called his name Levi, which means joining.
Mm-hmm.
She became pregnant again and bore a son, and said, this time I will give thanks to the Lord. Therefore she called his name Yehudah, which means giving thanks. Then she stopped giving birth. Now when Rachel saw that she could not bear children to Jacob, Rachel envied her sister. She said to Jacob, come now, give me children. If not, I will die.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob's anger flared up against Rachel. He said, am I in place of God who has denied you fruit of the body? She said, here is my slave girl, Bilhah. Come into her, so that she may give birth upon my knees, so that I too may be built up with sons through her. So this is just like with Abraham and his wife.
Yeah.
Rebecca. With Sarah, yeah.
Sarah. Right?
And they couldn't conceive, and so they conspire.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yes.
So she gave him Bilhah, her maid, as a wife, and Jacob came in to her. Bilhah became pregnant and bore Jacob a son. Rachel said, God has done me justice. Yes, he has heard my voice. He has given me a son. Therefore, she called his name Dan, which means he has done justice. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, became pregnant again and bore a second son to Jacob. Rachel said, "A struggle of God I have struggled with my sister. Yes, I have prevailed." So she called his name Naphtali, my struggle.
All these children.
Now when Leah saw that she had stopped giving birth, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Zilpah, Leah's maid, bore Jacob a son. Leah said, "What fortune!" So she called his name Gad, which means fortune. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bore a second son to Jacob. Leah said, "What happiness! For women will deem me happy." So she called his name Asher, which means happiness. Now Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest and found some love apples in the field. And I believe another translation that I read earlier said mandrakes. Yours
That's what
probably
mine said.
does too. I'm not sure why this is. Okay, Hebrew is duadim, a plant believed to have aphrodisiac powers. Okay, so they called them love apples. And brought them to Leah, his mother. Rachel said to Leah, "Pray, give me some of your son's love apples." She said to her, "Is your taking away my husband such a small thing that you would now take away my son's love apples?" Rachel said, "Very well, he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's love apples." So when Jacob came home from the fields in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come into me, for I have hired you for my son's love apples."
What is wrong with Jacob? He let all these women tell him what to do.
He has 4 wives now, and they are competing over him.
Yes,
Leah even hires him out as a prostitute.
Yeah.
So he lay with her that night, and God hearkened to Leah, so that she became pregnant and bore Jacob a 5th son. Leah said, "God has given me hired wages because I gave my maid to my husband." So she called, jeez, that is so screwed up. So she called his name Issachar. There is hire. Once again, Leah became pregnant, and she bore a 6th son to Jacob. Leah said, "God has presented me with a good present. This time my husband will prize me, for I have borne him 6 sons." So she called his name Zebulun, which means prince. Afterwards, she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah.
The 7th child is a girl child.
Yes.
Finally. Oh
7
God,
means
girl.
she's done.
Yeah, 7 children.
The daughter means she can finally rest.
Yeah.
It's the 7th after all. But God kept Rachel in mind. God hearkened to her and opened her womb so that she became pregnant and bore a son and said, "God has removed," the Hebrew word for removed is asaph, "my reproach." So she called his name Yosef, saying, "May God add, Yosef, another son to me." So Yosef is add, and it sounds very much like removed, asaph. Now it was, that should be anglicized Joseph, for anyone that was curious. Now it was once Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me free, that I may go back to my place, to my land. Give over my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and I will go." Now, Leah bore 7 children, so it's probably been about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, you yourself know my service, that I have served you. Laban said to him, pray, if I have found favor in your eyes, I have become wealthy, and God has blessed me on account of you. And he said, specify the wages due you from me, and I will give you payment. He said to him, you yourself know how I have served you and how it has gone with your livestock in my charge. For you had but few before me, and they have since burst out into a multitude. Thus has the Lord blessed you at my every step. But now, when may I too do something for my household? He said, what shall I give you? So now it's not, what are your wages? What will I give you? Jacob said, you are not to give me anything. Only do this for me. Then I will return. I will tend your flock. I will keep watch. Let me go over your whole flock today, removing from there every speckled and dappled head, and every dark head among the lambs, and each dappled and speckled one among the goats. They shall be my wages. And may my honesty plead for me on a future day. When you come to check my wages that are before you, whatever is not speckled or dappled among the goats or dark among the lambs, it will be as though stolen by me. Laban said, good, let it be according to your words. All right. That day he removed the male goats that were streaked and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white in it, and all the black ones amongst the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. He set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Jacob took to himself rods of fresh poplar, almond, and plane tree, peeled white streaks in them, and made the white appear, which was in the rods. He set the rods, which he had peeled, opposite the flocks in the watering troughs where the flock came to drink. They conceived when they came to drink. The flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks produced streaked, speckled, and spotted. Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the streaked and all the black in Laban's flock. He put his own droves apart and didn't put them into Laban's flock. Whenever the stronger of the flock conceived, Jacob laid the rods in front of the eyes of the flock in the watering troughs, that they might conceive amongst the rods. But when the flock were feeble, he didn't put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. The man increased exceedingly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Now, it doesn't take much to test whether or not this works. There's no magic spell happening here, in other words.
It's tiring me out.
Yes, the
Because it's so
deceit.
intense, you know.
It really is. There's a lot of deceit. There's competitiveness.
Yeah.
And that's all of Jacob's story. It really is.
Wow.
Hating the younger of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't get any better. Huh?
Deceitful.
Let's see.
Mm-hmm. And his story is bizarre, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this story of placing the striped rods
I know.
among the
and
goats.
You know what? I can't even perceive that. I can't even figure out what they're doing here. What
So-
are they?
So
if you can, and hooray,
right. It's like those old wives' tales
Yeah.
of conceiving in certain positions, and you'll have a boy or a girl.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I remember the video game The Sims. You could feed your Sims apples and they would have boys, or if you fed them watermelons, they would have girls.
Oh gosh. Oh dear.
And it's kind of like that. It's on that level of ridiculousness.
It's obvious.
But you know what, though? People believed legends like that.
Mm.
They really did. There were people that ate apples and watermelons to have a certain gender of child, and they believed it. The Sims didn't pull that out of nowhere. I remember. No, I'm not going to tell that story. All right. Chapter 31. Jacob heard Laban's son's words, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's. He has obtained all this wealth, that which was our father's. Jacob saw the expression on Laban's face, and behold, it was not towards him as before. The Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the fields to his flock and said to them, I see the expressions on your father's face, that it is not towards me as before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all of my strength. Your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but God didn't allow him to hurt me. If he said, the speckled will be your wages, then all the flock bore speckled. If he said, the streaked will be your wages, then all the flock bore streaked. Thus God has taken away your father's livestock and given them to me. During mating season, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the male goats which leapt on the flock were streaked, speckled, and grizzled. The angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob, and I said, here I am. He said, now lift up your eyes and behold, all the male goats which leap on the flock are streaked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban does to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar, where you vowed a vow to me. Now arise, get out from this land and return to the land of your birth. Rachel and Leah answered him, is there yet any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house? Aren't we considered as foreigners by him? For he has sold, for he has sold us and has also used up our money. For all the riches which God has taken away from our father are ours and our children's. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So this is the way that Jacob's life was leading him. We see Laban is the foil to Jacob. If God had not turned Jacob's life around, this is where it would have led. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives on the camels, and he took away all his livestock and all his possessions, which he had gathered, including the livestock which he had gained in Padan Aram, to go to Isaac his father, to the land of Canaan. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole the teraphim that were his father's. Do you have another word there for teraphim?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I have here is that they are household idols that may have been associated with inheritance rights to the household property. But what's typically important is that they are idols.
Yeah.
And they were her father's. Jacob deceived Laban the Syrian in that he didn't tell him that he was running away. So he fled with all that he had. He rose up, passed over the river, and set his face toward the mountains of Gilead. Laban was told on the third day that Jacob had fled. He took his relatives with him and pursued him 7 days' journey. He overtook him in the mountain of Gilead. God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream of the night and said to him, "Be careful that you don't speak to Jacob, either good or bad." Laban caught up with Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountain, and Laban with his relatives encamped in the mountain of Gilead. Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done that you have deceived me and carried away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and deceive me and didn't tell me that I might have sent you away with mirth and with songs, with tambourine and with harp, and didn't allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Now have you done foolishly. It is in the power of my hand to hurt you. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful that you don't speak to Jacob, either good or bad.' Now you want to be gone because you greatly longed for your father's house. But why have you stolen my gods?" Jacob answered Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I said, 'Lest you should take your daughters from me by force.' Anyone you find your gods with shall not live. Before our relatives discern what is yours with me and take it." For Jacob didn't know that Rachel had stolen them. Laban went into Jacob's tent, into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the 2 female servants, but he didn't find them. He went out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the teraphim, put them in the camel's saddle, and sat on them. Laban felt around all the tent, but didn't find them. She said to her father, "Don't let my lord be angry that I can't rise up before you, for I'm having my period." He searched, but didn't find the teraphim.
Oh my God.
Even 6,000 years ago.
This is an incredible story.
Oh,
It really is.
These women are not good either. I mean, they're not virtuous.
I told you there are no good people in Scripture.
I believe that. I believe it wholeheartedly.
This is why it's so true when Jesus says, "Why do you call me good? Only God is good." You can read the whole Scripture and not find any supermen in all of Scripture.
Oh boy. This is better than a novel. I believe I read all kinds. Oh, yes. Okay, sorry.
All right, verse 36. Jacob was angry and argued with Laban. Jacob answered Laban, "What is my trespass? What is my sin, that you have hotly pursued me? Now that you have felt around in all my stuff, what have you found of all your household stuff? Set it here before my relatives and your relatives, that they may judge between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not cast their young, and I haven't eaten the rams of your flocks. That which was torn of animals I didn't bring to you, I bore its loss. Of my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. This was my situation. In the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sheep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I have served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night. Laban answered Jacob, the daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. What can I do today to these my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? Now come, let's make a covenant, you and I. Let it be for a witness between me and you. Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. Jacob said to his relatives, gather stones. They took stones and made a heap. They ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jagar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galeed. Laban said, this heap is witness between me and you today. Therefore it was named Galeed and Mizpah. For he said, the Lord watch between me and you when we are absent one from another. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take wives in addition to my daughters, no man is with us. Behold, God is witness between me and you. Laban said to Jacob, see this heap and see the pillar which I have set between me and you. May this heap be a witness and the pillar be a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and that you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. Then Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Jacob offered a sacrifice in the mountain and called his relatives to eat bread. They ate bread and stayed all night in the mountain. Early in the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. Laban departed and returned to his place. You know, it just strikes me, Laban saying, you know, these are my daughters and my sons, and these are my goats. He seems like the kind of father that cannot let go. You know, that when his daughters are married, that they are still his daughters, and he'll never see them as, he'll never see his son-in-law as having a rightful place in that family.
Wow.
All right, chapter 32. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When he saw them, Jacob said, this is God's army. He called the name of that place Mahanaim. Let's see what that means. I've got a footnote there, which means 2 camps. It's interesting. Jacob sent messengers in front of him to Esau, his brother, to the land of Seir, in the field of Edom. He commanded them, saying, this is what you shall tell my lord Esau. This is what your servant Jacob says. I have lived as a foreigner with Laban and have stayed until now. I have cattle, donkeys, flocks, male servants, and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord that I may find favor in your sight. The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau. He is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him.
Oh, boy.
Then Jacob was greatly afraid and was distressed. He divided the people who were with him along with the flocks, the herds, and the camels, into 2 companies. He said, if Esau comes to the one company and strikes it, then the company which is left will escape. Jacob said, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, return to your country and to your relatives, and I will do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the loving kindness and of all the truth which you have shown to your servant. For with just my staff I crossed over this Jordan, and now I have become 2 companies. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and strike me and the mothers with the children. You said, I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which can't be counted because they are so many. He stayed there that night and took from that which he had with him a present for Esau his brother, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels and their colts, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 foals. He delivered them into the hands of his servants, every herd by itself, and said to his servants, pass over before me and put a space between the herd and herd. He commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau my brother meets you and asks you, saying, whose are you? Where are you going? Whose are these before you? Then you shall say, they are your servant Jacob's. It is a present sent to my lord Esau. Behold, he also is behind us. He commanded also the second and the third and all that followed the herds, saying, this is how you shall speak to Esau when you find him. You shall say, not only that, but behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me, and afterward I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. So the present passed over before him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. He rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 servants and his 11 sons and crossed over the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them over the stream and sent over that which he had. Jacob was left alone and wrestled with a man there until the breaking of the day. When he saw that he didn't prevail against him, the man touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was strained as he wrestled. The man said, let me go, for the day breaks. Jacob said, I won't let you go unless you bless me. He said to him, what is your name? He said, Jacob. He said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have fought with God and with men and have prevailed. Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. He said, why is it that you ask, what is my name? So he blessed them there. Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, for he said, I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. The sun rose on him as he passed over Peniel, and he limped because of his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel don't eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the hollow of the thigh, to this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. So here is where Jacob finds the courage to meet his brother. He wrestles with a man in the middle of the night who he thinks is God. And if he can do that, well, surely he can face his brother.
Yeah.
But that's a story for next week.
Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating. Oh my goodness.
So it doesn't look like we have anyone joining us online, so I will end the live stream here.
Okay.
Do you have any questions or comments before I do?
Well, I think I commented all the way throughout, so you know, it
It's
was,
fascinating. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it just shows that I didn't really read it really well. Genesis.
Well,
well,
usually
even if you read it yourself, it's still you know the questions are going to surface, and at that point, because you don't have the answers, it's kind of like,
Mhm.
well, it's good to read it, but to really, you know,
Mhm.
understand it, it's a
Oh,
different
yeah.
story. You know.
Yeah, I've read through with different translations, different study Bibles, and all kinds of study aids.
Mhm.
And, you know, it takes at least a few read throughs before you catch the little things.
Mhm, mhm. But this is really good because you know it opens up your eyes a lot,
Mm.
and it makes you think about how it happened in those days and
Oh, yeah.
what the message is, and it certainly has messages in the story.
Hmm.
But what gets me is that people just like today weren't always good.
Right.
You know, shows you the good side and the
Mhm.
bad side of things.
Yeah.
Which myself, you know, I always struggle with things like what I read about the Bible, and certainly when you hear it from sermons and stuff.
Hmm.
My question for myself is, I don't think I've lived my life correctly.
Well, neither did any of them.
I know, but it still falls on me because I always constantly probe
Hmm.
my own self.
Yeah.
And I know my own self is not perfect.
Hmm.
And and sometimes
Hmm.
it really makes me feel like, oh my God, have I failed here? You know,
Mm.
because from little kid time, you were always, you know, going to Sunday school class and learning through that. But of course, you're a child then. But when you get older, of course, it changes.
Hmm.
And when it changes, it opens up your whole mind and your psyche and you know
Oh, yeah.
your spirit. And I am always beating myself up
Mm.
because I feel like, could I have done something better?
Hmm.
Could I have helped myself better? Am I listening to the Lord's word truly?
Right.
And I look at my innards and I say, no, I haven't.
Mm.
You know,
Well,
constantly looking at my own
I
self.
don't think anyone ever does.
Mm,
I don't think any of us gets it right.
yeah,
And that's what's so great about these stories
Yeah.
in the Bible is that no one gets them right.
it gives you hope.
You know,
It
and
gives you hope.
God is speaking directly to these people and they
Yeah.
don't get it right.
Yeah, true. So I should beat it. I should beat myself up all the
Oh,
time.
definitely not.
Oh,
You know?
God.
And I think too, it's generational. We see Abraham live one way and he tries his best, but he gets it wrong. And Isaac sees that Abraham didn't quite get it right. So he lives a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get it right either. And so Jacob sees that and he lives his life differently too.
Yeah.
And
You're
it's
right.
not until later in life that Jacob realizes he needs to change.
Yeah. Right.
So no, they don't get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them start off strong and
Yeah.
piddle out towards the end, and others, you know, start out wicked and get it right later.
Oh well.
So, all right,
It gives
that's
me
where-
hope.
Yeah.
I can only say I don't know how much longer, you know, I'm going to be sitting here on earth, according to His will. But it still gives me a chance. It gives me time.
Right.
And I know why, but listening to you, it's more exciting to me.
Thank you.
I really didn't. I read the story. I know the story,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so much more exciting when you explain things.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. That's why we're here.
All right, well, I'm ending it there.
Yeah. Okay, so
So-
we'll see you Thursday?